everyone, thanks for tuning in today. I'm Nicole Forbes with Dennis's 7Ds, and it's early July, and we're talking about summer houseplant care and also how to kind of take care of your plants if you go on vacation, or when you go on vacation, because it's summer vacation time. It is today here with me in my classroom setup. I've pulled together just some of the classic representation of tropical plants that you may have at home, so that we can talk about what we do and what we focus on in the summertime that's different perhaps than winter houseplant care. So I find it a little bit more difficult to maintain a consistent houseplant care routine in the summer. I am busier in the summer months. I am also indoors less in the summer, so I spend my time outside. And so remembering and keeping a mindful eye on my indoor plants is not as easy in the summer as it is in the winter, when it's me and them, and we're looking outside at the outdoor plants, but the indoor plants are getting most of my attention at that time of year. So summer plant care, one of the things that is important in summer houseplant care is adjusting your watering routine, so that you're probably watering more frequently at the peak of summer. It still is important to let your plants dry out between waterings, to kind of feel their weight or check their roots to see how moist they are before you water again. We talk about that in some of our more basic houseplant care classes, but keeping them in their plastic containers, for example, and then dropping those plastic containers down into the decorative pots is a great way to be able to weigh the plant and make sure that it is dry enough, or had a chance to dry out enough before you water it again. And also, again, most of our decorative pots these days don't have drainage holes in them. So this plastic pot inserted into a decorative pot gives the plant a chance to drain free when it gets watered, and that helps it to remain as healthy as possible. We want to adjust watering. We want to monitor the light, because again, changes in lighting in our homes as the sun becomes brighter, the angle of the sun changes. There may be more direct and prolonged direct sunlight on our plants that are in windowsills. And I know in winter, I'm moving plants closer to windows to take advantage of it as the light gets lower and the sun sinks lower in the sky. But by this time of year, I have already moved some plants away from my windowsills, as I've noticed a little bit of crisping brown kind of edges on the leaves that are closest to the window or closest to the sun. So either, again, moving them out of direct sunlight if they are, most tropical plants don't want direct sun, or even putting a sheer curtain onto the window so that you can filter out some of that real strong sun, but you're still giving your plant the bright light on the other side. And I've recently actually seen some kind of neat new inventions, I guess you would say. I mean, they're really old inventions, but repurposed. So something called a sun filter or sun diffuser, I think it was. And it was as simple as using an embroidery hoop and either just kind of creating a mesh of macrame string or twine, or actually embroidering a lace pattern onto an embroidery hoop and then hanging those hoops in different sizes in your windows. And that can be specifically to kind of block the sun on a certain plant and not the sheer type effect of covering your entire window. So there's lots of creative ways to diffuse light or to reduce that direct sunlight on plants. Some are fine with it and can take that direct light, but a lot of our indoor plants would prefer filtered or indirect light and are prone to sunburn if they get that extended sun on them. So just be aware of that for sure. So altering your watering patterns, reducing sunburn chances by filtering the light or moving plants around. And then on the converse, some plants, as I just mentioned, can take direct sunlight. Some plants even like to go outside. So giving them a summer vacation outdoors often is brighter light, higher humidity than inside our homes, and a plant that is given a nice spot to spend 2-3 months outdoors during the summer while it's mild can often grow bigger and faster. Or when we talk about a succulent, for example, brighter coloration, brighter, more contrast, I guess you would say, against the coloration of the new growth versus the old leaves. So we have that nice purple, kind of dusky color. So we'll talk a little bit further about plants that want to go outside and how to get them there and how to get them back as well. But the south and the west facing windows, those are the ones that are really going to get the more intense sun as it gets warmer and hotter, or warmer and brighter in the summer months. So again, watching for signs of trouble, which would be sunburn, include like brown edges, brown tips, or just bleached leaves. If this Chinese evergreen, for example, got too much sun on it, the first thing we would probably notice is that the center portion of the leaf is going to get kind of a brown or bleached out look to it, not the entire leaf itself. And so that middle rib where the main vein goes down the leaf, we'll see kind of a dulling or darkening pattern of that leaf that is most exposed to sun. And it won't necessarily be on all of the plant unless the whole plant, is getting like sun from above. So if it's too close to a window, we'll see that side that's exposed to the sun start showing signs of trouble. If sunburn happens, I mean, you know what? Look at my nose, right? If sunburn happens, you're not going to die. It's a cosmetic change, although it's stressful. So, and potentially, long-term could be damaging cells. So we don't want to go sunburn on top of sunburn on top of sunburn. But if a leaf does get sunburned, if it's 50% or more damaged and is showing darkening or discoloration on more than half of the leaf, it's okay to go ahead and remove that leaf. But if it's less than that, I would keep it on the plant and allow the plant to decide when and kind of how to let it drop off. So at some point, if the leaf is no longer useful and it's been damaged so that it can't really photosynthesize or contribute to the plant, then eventually the plant may reallocate some of the nutrients that are in the leaf, so pull some nutrient out and then let it go while it grows new leaves. So don't worry, you can either take it off or leave it on there. When it comes to watering, again, warmer temperatures and, open windows, all of these things tend to dry our plants out a little bit faster than when it is, cold and dark in the winter months. So we see more rapid evaporation of the water in the soil, as well as that our plants are growing more rapidly, which means that they are also using water. So water evaporates faster and they're using it up. So giving your plants a deep soaking weekly, possibly on certain plants every 3 or 4 days, very needy, moisture-loving plants like your maidenhair fern or other ferns, giving them that deep soak, but allowing them to dry in between waterings. You can use a moisture meter. They are unreliable at best, so using a moisture meter in conjunction with kind of context, knowing when you watered last, what is the moisture meter read, and maybe feeling the weight of the plant or putting your finger into the first or second knuckle. All of those combined are going to tell you whether or not it's time to water your plant again. But even in the most extreme temperatures, in the hottest conditions, there's really no indoor plant you have that's going to need to be watered daily. So, fight the urge to give your plants water all the time. They would prefer to go dry in between. And also, no matter, again, when you water, giving them just room temperature water is better than, if you feel like they're hot or you think they're hot and you think, oh, well, I like a nice cool drink of water. Maybe my plant wants a nice cool drink of water. Giving them cold water is really not ideal, and it's too much of a shock for them. And the same goes for ice. Do not water your plants with ice. Just use water. That's what they want. They don't want ice. Even though ice melts to water, too cold doesn't make any sense. Just use water. So connecting to watering is humidity. Signs of trouble on watering include leaf or flower drop, wilting or curled leaves, and brown leaf tips or leaf edges. As usual, I always forget this until this point in the discussion, but there is a handout that's attached to the top of this video, so it's just under the title of the video. And if anyone has problems accessing it, mention it in the comments, and we will link it directly to you in the reply. Humidity is connected to watering. And humidity inside our homes, and the warmer it is, the air tends to dry out. And especially if we run an air conditioner in our homes, that's further drying out the air. So if we, again, are looking for chapstick and noticing that our hands are dry and wanting lotion, those are all indications that you are dry in your home, which means that your plants are also feeling on the dry side. So solving or resolving humidity issues by increasing the air humidity, your indoor air humidity, can be done multiple ways. The easiest, my favorite, is grouping plants together. The more the merrier is the way that I look at it in my house, and I guess that's a slippery slope because that's how I have so many plants. But together, plants can kind of raise the collective humidity of the space by all, growing and breathing and transpiring and doing their planty thing. So by creating a space that has more plants in a, collected together, that is going to be a more humid space. It's like walking into a greenhouse, when your glasses fog up, or you could just feel the change in humidity. So plants contribute quite a bit to raising, to adding moisture to the air. Now, sure, a mister is another great way to give your plants some increased humidity. But misting, by the way, this Delta mister is really a cool mister. There's great, what you have maybe under your bathroom sink, old school spray bottles, which are really nice. But the newer misters create a finer mist. So this is really almost aerosol type mist, and for a little bit more of a sustained period. So I don't even know if that shows up on the video, but I can stop using the trigger and I still have mist spraying for, 10 seconds or whatever. So if you are misting your plants, it needs to be done pretty thoroughly and day and night. So we would want to mist in the morning and mist at night. And that's an awful lot of misting. And to be honest, some plants don't want their leaves to be wet, especially as the, day turns to night, and now they're going to kind of go into night with a lot of moisture sitting on their foliage. Some plants, that could cause a disease or lead to potential fungal problems later down the line. So it is generally better to mist in the mornings so that then the sunlight comes along and dries the leaves off before dark, which makes it, again, more of a challenge to give the plants the humidity that they need through misting. So misting is kind of a fun, interactive way to get involved, but it's not super practical, not to mention the whole time that I'm spraying my plant, I'm also spraying, my dresser and the wall and the carpet and the cat or, whatever. So all of those things just don't always work really well with other items that are inside the home. But there's Other fabulous ways to raise humidity inside. A pebble tray, which you will, if you look at the handout, you will see a picture of a pebble tray. I'm not even going to show you. It's a tray, like a cafeteria tray or a long rectangle. Put small rocks or pebbles on the bottom of the tray. They could be marbles or whatever you have or want. And then add water to just covering the rock layer and just right up to the top of the rocks. Then your plants that like humidity would set on top of those pebbles, not actually in the water, but where the water in the pebble tray then evaporates just through passive evaporation. As it evaporates, that's going to create a pocket of humidity around the plants. And you would just top off the tray as the water is reduced to keep that level about the same. You can do a similar thing with one plant in like a plate. So one needy little fern, for example, you can make a humidity plate by just setting one larger plate, like a dinner plate, fill it with water, and then turn an upside down saucer on top so that the saucer creates sort of a higher mound. Your plant can sit on that saucer, so it's out of the water, but then the water that's sitting in the plate around it, again, as it evaporates, creates extra humidity that would keep this fern just a little extra happy. So giving your plants all of those extra advantages in the summertime can make a big difference. Humidifiers obviously are another kind of no-brainer way to raise the indoor air humidity or moisture. And if you find that you are very dry or your fingers are cracking, things that are affecting you as well, then it may be a good idea to add a humidifier. There are also cases, so cloches, domes, or the beautiful kind of display cases that are now pretty popular with indoor plant enthusiasts and collectors. So those cases are usually glass shelved and have a little bit of a insulated ability to control humidity once it's all closed up. So you can keep plants inside of a glass display case, for example, and with the doors closed, you will see that increased humidity there. So the collector plants, the needy, those that really appreciate high humidity, they could all be, collected and displayed together in a something that is decorative as well as practical. Dust and pests. So dust and pests are, they seem to, well, it's a year-round, honestly, that's a year-round thing, right? Winter, dust, pests. Summer, dust, pests. We just have to stay on top of it, ever vigilant against dust and pests. And a lot of pests can look like dust. So we are, just by keeping your leaves clean, you're doing a lot of preventative care to reduce the odds of having something that becomes an infestation that really needs to be sprayed or dealt with. The more our windows are open in the summer months, the more likely we have dust blowing around, pollen comes in and lands on our leaves, and pollen is kind of sticky. So again, getting those leaves washed off and as clean as possible allows a plant to be the most efficient solar panel it can possibly be. And, let's face it, that's what these leaves are for. So they need to collect energy from the sun. And if the sun is filtering through a thick layer of dust on the foliage, then the plant isn't able to be as efficient in gathering energy as it could be if they were cleaner. So if you are misting already, what an easy thing to do then. I've got a wet leaf because I misted it. So I can just take a nice soft rag and just be gentle, but just wipe the leaf clean. Usually the dust is on the tops, but if I'm looking for pest control as well, then I'm going to also gently wipe the bottom of the leaf. You could have two little rags, or honestly, socks are awesome. Just cotton socks, slip one on each hand, and you can, clean tops and bottoms of your plant with with ease. So the plain water is really often just enough to get your plant nice and clean. Just a basic quick wipe down. Also, while you're doing it, you can make sure that you're noticing whether you see a funny spot or a blemish or something you might want to look a little bit closer at. Neem oil is another product that a lot of us have on hand in our kind of cabinets or with our houseplant care, or maybe even outside, because of course neem oil can be used indoors or outdoors. But neem oil works nicely as a leaf shine, or as just a spray to clean your plant. In addition, neem oil has insecticide, miticide, and fungicide properties, which means that while you are cleaning your plant off with neem oil, you're also working to prevent a potential pest infestation. So we see black spot powdery mildew, rust, spider mites, aphids, whiteflies, and a lot of other pests. Tells us on the label that it can be used indoors, outdoors, houseplants, vegetables, etc. It's an oil though, so neem oil is likely to soak into like natural surfaces, wood, even your walls. Maybe it'll discolor, walls and things. So it's always a good idea to either protect surfaces if you're going to spray in the house, or just take your plant outside to give it a treatment if you're going to spray it. Even just like the ends dripping off are going to possibly get, neem oil on your carpet or whatever. And it doesn't smell horrible, but it has a funny smell that I'm not thrilled to have just like lingering in my house. But if you just use it in a more of like a wipe form, then it's really not quite as messy. It just doesn't get everywhere. So a nice soft cloth, my little neem oil bottle, and I'm just going to spray the cloth with it instead of spray the plant. Like I said, we can spray the plant. Can be a mess. Take it outside. If you take it outside, though, I'm going to tell you while I'm spraying my cloth, if you take it outside, it's important to know a couple of things. One, again, it's an oil, which means that as we kind of oil up our plants with it, it's very shiny and makes them super happy. But an oil, just like baby lotion or baby oil, it's going to make them even more photosensitive. So the leaf could get a sunburn if it sits out in bright light and has that fresh oil wipe on it. So we can wipe it off or wipe it clean or spray it, then wipe it down, then bring it back inside before it sits out for too long and potentially burns with that oil layer on it. However, if you are, on a day like today, we've got some really nice kind of overcast skies. Just the other day, we had a little shower for a good part of the morning that was just lightly sprinkling. And I took half of my big plants and brought them all out onto the back porch where they actually got rain, and just they loved it. So again, it was a great way to get their leaves wet and clean, get them outside in a little bit of kind of just gentle sunlight. They got a nice watering at the same time, and then I brought them all in before I had to leave the house later, and so I brought them in before I left the house because I didn't know whether the sun was going to come out later or not, which it did. So I was lucky that I had brought them in. So things to watch for. Oh, I guess I'll mention one thing. Neem oil and the wipe down are good for plants that have more of like a shiny leaf. So we could do it with our snake plant, for example. And yes, even snake plants get a little dirty and like to be cleaned off. But we want to avoid using oil on fuzzy plants. So plants that have like a furry surface on the leaves. Something like an African violet, for example, they've got a very fuzzy leaf. We don't want to add oil to that fuzz. And often they don't even really like to get wet. So cleaning a fuzzy leafed plant is better done with like a soft brush. Think paintbrush, makeup brush, to just brush the dust off of those fuzzy leaves instead of trying to wipe them off. Wiping on a fuzzy thing is pretty hard anyway, so you just kind of move the dust around. But a paintbrush pretty much can flick it off and does a really good job at that. So also, certain plants, again, the blue-gray or sort of whitish colored plants, occasionally neem oil can take their blue-gray away, because it's often like a powder that's sort of on the top, like a wax or a powdery coating on the foliage. And the neem will break that down and kind of turn it back to green for a while. So if you've never used neem oil on a particular plant that you have at home, just like using like stain remover or I don't know, any of those other things that you read the label and it says like try it on a small spot that's inconspicuous before spraying your entire, area rug with it or whatever. Just spray a little leaf with neem oil and see if you notice any color changes or discoloration that you would be objecting to before you spray the entire plant. Now, signs of trouble in summer specifically, we see the most common pest is probably spider mites. And spider mites tend to increase their population and pest potential. It's a lot of P's. In the heat, so in direct sun, in areas of intense heat, that's where spider mites are happy, and so that's where they breed and really take hold. So again, thinking about those areas where we are getting prolonged direct sun, or where there's still air, kind of poor air circulation, a sheltered space, that is where we're likely to see spider mites become an issue, and neem oil can help to prevent that, as well as just keeping leaves clean. Early symptoms of spider mites can, as I mentioned, just look kind of like a dusty leaf. The leaf becomes dull. If it were shiny before when it's healthy, it may just take on kind of a dull appearance with less sheen. It may also get a little bit crispy looking or even sort of yellowish. In extreme infestations, you will see a very fine webbing that encases the leaf or encases portions of the plant where the mites are active. It's not like Charlotte's Web spider web. It is a very fine webbing that is even hard almost to see with the naked eye. And spider mites are surely hard to see with the naked eye. So they're like the size of a period on a magazine, at the end of a sentence on a magazine. So spider mites are tiny. Often you even need to get like a magnifying glass or a hand lens to really inspect your plants to see them. So it's not a bad idea to have a magnifying glass or a hand lens as part of kind of just your, I'm going to call it your plant science kit, but just kind of as your plant health care regimen, so that you can look closely at things that you are questioning. It is early signs, okay, dull, dusty looking leaves, pale coloring, stunted growth, very fine webbing. So again, neem oil or Mitex. Let's see, Mitex is another great product for spider mites. I mean, Mitex, right? So that's telling you right away, it's very specialized. This is oil as well, but it's just not neem. It's cottonseed oil, clove oil, and garlic oil. It smells kind of like salad dressing when you spray it. Again, this is a little bit of a smaller pump spray, easier sort of to keep in one space, but it's going to drip. It's going to stain your stuff, so take it outside to treat it, or put out a drop cloth, or lay out a tarp, or even spray it in a plastic bag. That way you can control the space and the mess. There's a really cool new product that we've been carrying for a couple of months now. It is called Fantastic Foliage. It's also mentioned in the handout, but these are wipes, basically. We're all pretty familiar with wipes. These are wipes that have basically Castile soap, some fertilizer, and neem oil, as well as some other essential oils. The wipes are fairly good sized, and so you can use, one would probably do the whole plant. You would just, they're already soaking in the good stuff, so you just take one out, treat your plant with it. You can toss the wipe, and if you are, hesitant to spray, or you don't want to deal with, rags of neem oil or whatever, this is a great alternative for you. Keeps your leaves clean, does a little foliar feeding, so it's putting some fertilizer right onto the leaf surface, and also, again, that neem oil for protection. Okay, houseplants do want to go outside, but there's not all of them want to go outside. But as I mentioned, quite a few do benefit from some time outdoors. If that's something that you want to do, a couple of really important steps beforehand are critical. One is you need to get your plant used to being outside. Now, getting a plant used to being outside means that you need to gradually acclimate it to brighter and brighter light conditions. Even if, even if it was on this side of the window in the house, and now you're going to take it outside and literally put it on the outside of the same window, that's not the same amount of light. The window itself filters a fair amount of sunlight from coming inside the house. So that same plant just literally jumping through the window to the other side and being now outside needs to be acclimated to that space. It could have a bit of shade cloth in front of it or on it to, again, filter out the light so that it's slowly getting used to it. You could put it out in as shady of a spot as you possibly can, and gradually, like every 2 or 3 days, gradually move it into more and more sun. If we are, like today, it's 65 or 70 degrees and it's overcast, and maybe we'll have a couple of sun breaks, but for the most part, this is a great day to get a plant outdoors. But by Sunday and Monday, it's supposed to be 90 and will be really intense sun. So that quick of a shift or a change could also be overwhelming and too much all at once for your indoor plants. So thinking about them in extreme temperatures, giving them, again, that gradual acclimation to outside, and potentially, seeing that, okay, a couple of leaves did get sunburned when it went out. You'll prune those off, and, as a compensation, the plant's going to grow more rapidly when it's out there, which means that it'll make up for a couple of leaves that maybe get lost in sunburn. So outdoors, we find that we actually have a little bit higher humidity usually in the summer than we have indoors. So you'll have to sort of start from scratch in figuring out the plant's watering needs when it's outside, as opposed to what its watering regimen was when it was inside. But usually when we are out, we've got the hose or a can, and we're watering other plants outside. So it gets lumped into a more outdoor plant type watering routine. Excuse me. You see on either side of my table here, I have some ficus. So I've got Ficus benjamina here, our lovely kind of standard weeping fig. Over on stage right, we've got Ficus lyrata, which is the fiddle leaf fig. Ficus are a perfect example of a plant that thrives in bright but filtered light and could go outside onto a covered porch or patio, maybe getting a little angled morning sun or some filtered or diffused afternoon sun. But the plant could live out there from, mid-May all the way on until early or mid-October. And in that time, it could very likely put on significant new growth, specifically when compared to the same plant grown inside for that duration of time. So the advantage in this case would be getting the plant to push out a lot of new growth and grow quite larger. But quite a few plants, succulents, cacti, will give you brighter foliage color, better coloration when grown outdoors, or at least put outdoors for a certain amount of time. So here I've got this, as I mentioned, this Echeveria. This is Pearl von Nürnberg. It's got this like plummy, smoky coloration to it, and the bright center that's almost fuchsia purple is due to the fact that it's out in bright light. If it were indoors, we would see this as kind of a dull green with maybe a bit of pink blushing to it. So nice bright light gives us that great color. Same with the flapjack. Another, this is a calancho, but just another great succulent. We consider these tender succulents, so they would not make it through the winter outdoors here in the Pacific Northwest. The kind of timeline for bringing them indoors would be either mid to late October, definitely by Halloween. But we see that really bright edging on the flapjacks because we've gotten the color from being outside in some bright sun. So another great reason to put our little plants out for a summer vacation. Another Echeveria here. This is Athens. It is black. It is almost as black as the pot that it's growing in because, again, it's had that bright, direct sun on it. And the next exciting thing that we see that happens often when we put plants outside to give them a little break and vacation is that they respond by making flowers. So here, our little Echeveria Athens is putting out a flower bud, actually a couple of flower buds. But the same goes for things like jade. This is a cute, kind of an extra special jade plant. This is a large red jade. So again, you see that red coloration on the top. It also has sort of a reddish stem when it's exposed to the sunlight. But jade plants will often not only get brighter color, but set flower buds so that then the jade will bloom for you when you bring it back indoors. Same with other like cacti and succulents like the zygocactus, our Christmas or Easter cactus. Those outdoors can be brought in by Halloween, and by kind of giving them that change in light and temperature, they are stimulated to set their flower buds. Same goes for a Hoya. A Hoya is another one of those really sturdy, thick leaf, almost succulent, tolerant of bright light, and even some direct sunlight on Hoyas as you get them acclimated. The Hoya, this is Crimson Queen, one of the kind of, in addition to how cool they look right here, one of the other reasons Hoya are popular is that they do make a really cool flower. And many of the flowering varieties are fragrant. This is likely to make a flower bud, more likely to make a flower bud if it does get that outdoor kind of break where it's in brighter light and then brought back inside before Halloween. So again, reasons why we would do that is to get either more rapid growth, put on some size on a plant that we want to see, get bigger, brighter coloration on the foliage itself, or stimulate a plant to go into bloom. And honestly, a lot of these houseplants just look super cool outside, in your patio or out on your deck for the summer months. And if you like to hang out with them like you do indoors, but now you're hanging out outdoors, then bring your plants out there with you. So just to choose wisely so that you know which plants want to go out for sure. And again, we do have a list for you. Ficus, croton, ponytail palms, Dracaena, and Sansevieria, that's snake plants. All of them can take lovely weather outside, and many of them can take direct sun on them. Aloe, jade plants, and other cactus and succulents also happy out there. Hoya, begonias, orchids, other flowering plants, giving them a little summer vacation will get that bloom to set for you, especially if you've had trouble having them bloom in the past. Now, you're going on vacation and you have a house full of plants that you are highly concerned about perishing while you're gone. And that's perfectly reasonable to be concerned about. If you are taking a 3-month trip to Europe, you need to hire somebody to take care of your plants, or distribute them out to friends and neighbors while you're gone, because that's too long for your plants to be able to take care of themselves. If you're gone for a week, or if it's a weekend to the coast, or a long weekend, your plants are going to be fine. They probably won't even know that you're gone. And so there's no reason to worry. But there are some things that you can do ahead to set them up for success and not come back to, a room of death, I guess, which I have had some bad vacation experiences before and lost some plants, which has given me all of the lessons and tips that I have come up with to try to help you avoid those things. So again, handout that will go into more detail on this, but thoroughly water your plants before you go on vacation. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, but there's a lot of other things that you're doing, right? Leading up to vacation, you got to line up the whatever travel plans, you got to pack, you got to empty the fridge, probably clean the house. Maybe you've got pet sitters and outdoor plant care people, stop the mail. All of those things are on your mind, and watering your plants may be low on your priority list, but it definitely needs to be done before you leave, and ideally kind of as close to your departure as possible. Then it's summer, right? And it's hot out there. So close your windows, close your blinds, close the curtains, and make it dark in your house. They're gonna be sad to not have the sun for a week, but that's not gonna kill them like it would if they all got too much sun and hot and dried out. And so anyways, they will grow slower, and you will just kind of put them into a little bit of a coma for a week by just creating a little bit of a cave in the house. I mean, let's face it, if it's going to be 100 degrees and we were home, we would do that anyways. So, or it would be a good idea to do that anyways. So your plants will be fine with that just lower light for a week or so. Clustering them together. Well, if you're like me and you have so many plants that's just the natural way of things, then hooray, we're already on our way to happy plants while we're on vacation. But if you have plants all over the place randomly or singularly, then bringing them all together into, even like the bathtub is a great place to just bring all the plants together and let them all hang out in the bathtub, as long as the bathtub doesn't get hot sun on it all day long or something. But grouping them together is going to make it easier if somebody did come in and water, even to just find them all and water them at once. But grouping them together, as I mentioned earlier, increases that collective humidity in the air, and so that will help keep them happier. Taking down hanging plants. So here is my favorite little philodendron cordatum, or the heartleaf philodendron. If this is hanging, cute little macrame hanger over in the corner above your couch, the air that the roots are exposed to more air by hanging than if it were sitting on a counter or on the table. And so a hanging plant is more likely to dry out. In addition, it's always hotter up higher in our rooms. So just by, again, taking it out of the hot spot and setting it down on its bottom will allow it to hold moisture a little bit longer than if it were just left hanging in its normal spot for that week. So taking them down, and finally a layer of mulch. So we don't often think of mulching our houseplants, but it's really important, especially if you want them to hold the moisture for a little bit longer than they typically do. Mulch can be a lot of different things. In the house, You may only want to use specific items for mulch that can either be, maybe you want to take it away when you're done so you could remove it. You could even mulch with cotton towels, cotton rags or cotton towels around the soil, just laid on top of the soil. Is going to hold moisture in. One of my favorite things to use as mulch is just plain old sphagnum moss. So this is a little bit of a browner moss. It's loose. It's not the like preserved green moss. You can mulch with that too. But mulch is simply covering the soil surface with a material that is going to reduce the water from evaporating right out of the soil surface in the first place. So it's just a layer on top of the potting soil. You could put your moss on moist even, so you could wet the moss, then wrap it around the container like this and cover the soil just enough that it's holding in a little extra moisture. If you get back from vacation and you don't want it there, or it's messing up your watering, then just remove the moss and either discard it or let it dry up and put it back in a bag for the next time you go on vacation. A couple of my plants at home, I use wine corks as a mulch. So just the surface area of the pot is covered with a single layer of corks. The corks hide the soil, but again, hold just enough moisture in the soil so that it allows me a little bit extra time between watering on my own. So mulch does make a big difference and can help quite a bit in even on a daily, on a regular basis, but certainly when you go on vacation. And when you come back from vacation, everybody gets a good watering again. Inspect all of your plants thoroughly. It's probably a good idea after that to, fertilize them if you haven't done that already. Just reacquaint yourself with them. It's a nice way to, while you're doing laundry and kind of recuperating from your vacation, to just take care of everybody all at once. And I hope you have a great time and that your plants do well at the same time. With that, I want to thank you for watching, and everyone, happy gardening.